All right, friends, in this episode, I want to give you just a quick, clear idea of how to organize a team and more specifically talk through the team structure, right? What parts need to exist for a neighborhood church to really operate at its greatest possible potential. So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, and try to take some notes. People always ask me, Mingo, who and how do I get teammates for my neighborhood church? And I always remind people, you want to do ministry, whether it's a neighborhood church or any other kind of ministry, with people that you love. So think about the people who you already do some sort of life with and approach them personally and ask, hey, would you join me in this thing that I'm doing and this thing that I'm going to try to experiment with and see if there's any interest amongst our community. You should be ready with an explanation. Maybe you can forward them one of the videos or one of the episodes that I've recorded. But the goal is, and I've always seen the best teams formed when there is clarity and friendship, when there is a consistency of connection that goes beyond just the ministry itself. I think of when Jesus called pairs of brothers into the ministry. I think he did that strategically because they already had background with one another. They already were committed to each other, and then they join in this ministry commitment. And I think that when things get challenging, they've already got this relational equity to lean on. And so I apply that forward to building a neighborhood church, and I ask people, who is it that you've got relationship equity with? Who are the people that you're already doing life with that you can invite into this ministry experience? I also believe that by way of diversity, looking at the 12 that Jesus picked, he picked very different people. If you think about the fact that he picks two Jewish fishermen who are brothers, right? Those are business owners. And then he picks a tax collector to also be on the same team. Now, think about the implications there, because you've got one person who would have been known for being corrupt, who would have been taking for himself, who would have been taxing the fishermen and their friends. And Jesus looks at the potential players on his team, and he picks from a diverse group of individuals. And the reason why he does this, in my belief and some of the studies I've read, is because Jesus has the potential to reach as diverse of a community as the team that he builds. Now I want you to think about that as it applies to you. The level of diversity, whether it's age, whether it's economic diversity, whether it's racial diversity, however you stack your team is going to be, I think, the ability or the qualifier for how your neighborhood church would gather. So be thinking really critically and really specifically about the people that you would invite in. And also, before I get to the roles part of this, just be thinking about how and who you want your neighborhood church to look like. Because depending upon how you want your neighborhood church to look, therein would lie the kind of people that you would invite in to be a part of the team. So do you want a neighborhood church that is mainly made up of people in their 30s and 40s who are single? Then you would probably invite that crowd to be a part of your team. Is your neighborhood church going to be a family neighborhood church, one that has kids between kindergarten and, let's say, 4th grade? Well, then you'd probably want to invite people onto the team who have people in that same life stage. I love, and I think that there is totally room for a completely diverse neighborhood church. So be thinking about it. Who doesn't live or look or have a life like you can you invite in to be part of the unique swatch that will make up the team that is your neighborhood church team? That's my first advice. That's a freebie. Let's just talk roles for a second. So I think there need to be 3 critical roles when it comes to launching a neighborhood church, right? There are just a bare minimum that you need. Now, that doesn't mean that 3 roles require 3 people, but it does require 3 distinct responsibility channels that I think everybody needs to be thinking about when they're launching a neighborhood church. So the first one, you can't have a neighborhood church unless you have a location. So I call this person or this pairing of people the location host. Okay? Location hosts are the people that will open up their space, whether it's their home, maybe they have access to a great front yard or a backyard, maybe they live in an apartment complex or a condo unit, and there's some common space that they uniquely have access to. That's who I would call the location host. And while you build your neighborhood church, there may be more than one person that comes to the table and says, hey, we'd love it if you used our space too. I don't think there's any problem with bringing multiple location hosts to the table, as long as you build a clear schedule for the people who are going to be attending your neighborhood church to know where to go when you guys meet. So the location host is really the person who opens up their space for people to come. And the responsibility of a location host is, I think, fairly forthright. Make sure that your space is clean. Make sure your space is accessible. Make sure that there's ample parking. If you're going to open up your space, we don't want people walking, let's say, blocks and blocks and blocks to get to your place. Especially if you hold a dinner service, neighborhood church, let's say it's after hours. You just don't want to let people be walking, neighborhoods in the dark. I think that it would be great if you're considering being a location host, that you consider how many people you could comfortably seat in your location. That might mean moving chairs from the kitchen maybe to the dining room, or moving stuff around and shuffling down some chairs from other parts of your house or your condo or your apartment. Nonetheless, you can communicate how many people you think you can comfortably fit. And then as you guys kind of run these trials, you can see if that estimation really is accurate or if it needs to be shifted. So the location host, your job is to create space where people feel welcomed, they feel comfortable. I think that it's always great if you can make some room in your fridge for some hospitality stuff. And like I said, I think seating and I think accessibility is probably the two greatest strengths when it comes to facilitating being the neighborhood host of the location. So location host is spot number one as far as the team is concerned. Now, responsibility role number two is actually the service host. Okay, the location host manages where it's at, and the service host manages what it is that we're going to do. So responsibilities for a service host would include being on the team call earlier in the week, consistently making space to be available and on a call to be up to speed with what's happening in the service. That service host would also be responsible for communicating to the team or identifying somebody who's got the gifts, the strength of communication, who can kind of administrate all the information. What times are we meeting? Who's on the team? How can we start a prayer list? Are there things that we're going to be doing to strategically or specifically or uniquely invite others in? What's that timeline look like? That all should fall inside the responsibility of the service host. Now, on top of that responsibility is also kind of the programmatic management elements. So when you start your neighborhood church, it should be the service host who is the one communicating. I always say it's the person who is the face associated with the place. That's an easy way to remember it. The service host is the face associated with the place. That person is the one that's going to welcome everybody. They're going to kind of give context. Who are we a part of? This is a part of Torrey Pines Church or Imperial Beach Church or Eastlake Church, maybe Venice Church. And that is a part of a larger family of churches known as the Eastlake Church Network. They're just painting a picture of what it is that this is about before they get started. Now, if you've got people that are consistently coming together and you don't have new people maybe once or twice a week, that location host, that service host is still going to kind of create some of the upfront general announcements. Maybe you guys are looking to expand your circle and you guys need a few more chairs. That service host could kind of give those announcements out to that community, to that neighborhood church, so everybody can be on the same page before they get into the service. So Be thinking about logistics. If you're a service host, be thinking about being consistently on the call so you can know where the service is going and how we want to facilitate the discussion. And facilitated discussion is another core component of the service host's responsibilities. So you're setting up the weekend message, and you're also contextualizing it at the back end. You're leading or fostering or facilitating some conversation that's going to engage the people that came to your church service. Now, does it need to be the same person week in and week out? I don't think so. I think that you should actually be training up. You should be giving the opportunity for other people to feel the rhythm of what it is to host a service, so that if there's ever a time when you need to take a break, that person needs to take a break, or maybe they're sick, maybe they're just not able to make service, somebody else is trained and able to step into that role. I also think that's why it's really good to have a backup location in case something doesn't work out that week. You can have another spot that's already tested, already proofed, and you can be confident that that spot's going to work for you. So, location host takes care of where you're going to be, right? Thinks about what it's going to be to invite several people to come together. The service host is the face associated with the place. It is the person that's praying for people, that's giving localized announcements. It's the person that welcomes everybody. It's the person that contextualizes and leads the after message discussion time. It's also a really good note to add into this that the service host is not the second sermon preacher, okay? And this is something that always happened in seasons past when we did neighborhood churches or microsite churches. Usually the people who are eager to preach or teach, what they want to do is they want to take the message and then they want to reteach another 35-minute message on the back end of it of how they see that weekend's particular message. Now, this is my challenge to a service host is if the sermon has already been preached, we don't need another sermon. If you're feeling led to maybe take on a portion of the teaching, I want you to talk to the team about being studied and prepared and connected in a way that maybe you can go into maybe option 2 of your neighborhood church and maybe take on the second half of teaching. But here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to burn time, to waste precious time with people just reteaching your own opinion or your own vantage point on something if the message has already been taught. Now, this is accountability for everybody because everybody's going to hear this if they're on a team. Your job is to not re-preach a sermon unless that's the format that you and your team choose together. So that is something that people typically, if they're eager to speak, if they're eager to talk, they'll play the sermon, let's say 20 minutes, and then they'll give their own 25-minute abridged sermon after that, and that's not the model here. That's the location host. That's the service host. And now let's talk hospitality. Hospitality is usually more than one person just because hospitality is really about taking care of the visual and perceived needs of whoever's coming to your service. Now, because you're inviting friends or family or people that you're already connected to in community, sometimes the temptation is just, hey, everybody's going to bring whatever they want and they'll take care of themselves. But think like you were in the hospitality industry, right? How do you meet somebody at the door? How do you anticipate their arrival? How do you get them welcomed and comfortably immersed in whatever location you find yourself in? What does food look like, right? Maybe you bring snacks or you brew a pot of coffee. Maybe you guys have a meal associated with your neighborhood service, your neighborhood church. So your job, if you're in that hospitality rhythm, if you're on the hospitality team or you're the hospitality point person, is to get there early enough to really prepare for the people's arrival. So maybe you help people download the app so that they can follow on with their notes. Maybe you prepare something locally that you give everybody as a way of going away with, as a reminder that you see them and you value them. Hospitality is the best experience when the person who is leading that hospitality ministry or that expression in a neighborhood church, when it just comes naturally to them, right? You want somebody who's extroverted, who's warm, who's empathetic. You want somebody who's great at listening, not necessarily just great at speaking. And those core 3 positions, hospitality, the service host and the location host, that really becomes like that church's staff. And here's the deal. When we talk about staff and leadership at the Eastlake Church level, at the Torrey Pines Church level, or any of the other local churches, it means that your core commitment is to serve, not to be seen, right? You don't lead so that others can see you elevated amongst the others. Your job, your commitment is that you are serving those who will be coming. So you've got to be ready, and you've got to check yourself. Are you committing to a team because you're ready to serve more than anybody else that comes to your neighborhood church? That means staying later to clean up. That means staying later to do dishes. That means getting there early to anticipate everyone's arrival. That means committing to prayerfully engaging and praying over the people that are going to be coming to your neighborhood church. It means getting ahead of what could be anticipated and really understanding what the weekend goal is and maybe the larger series goal is going to be. It also means that you're open as a conduit of potentially new people that you're going to bring into your neighborhood church. You have to be the first person ready to lead by example. So before you jump to any of these roles, I just want you to really consider that each of these positions is a posture and a position of service. That it's not about being seen, but it's about leading by serving. And when you can digest that and when you can commit to that, then you can start to think about, okay, I'd love to do a neighborhood church. I see myself really as a hospitality person. Maybe I'm not an upfront person. Maybe I can open my house up and commit to helping with hospitality. So who is it that's going to be the service host? Who has that natural ability that you can think of and go, I think I'm going to ask this person if they want to help me do this. And nobody has to have any experience. This is all going to be training that's going to happen here. But I would say your best bet is to start with the people that you know. Cast a little bit of vision, maybe share one of these videos or one of the podcast episodes, and really invite them to be a part of something that's much larger than any of us individually. I hope that there are some people that are coming to your mind right now. I'm going to pray that you boldly go and ask, and maybe, just maybe, you'll start to discover some really great strengths in some of your close friends that you never knew existed as you all commit to stepping into something brand new together. If you have any questions about the core components of a team or maybe any other detailed questions regarding the location host or the service host or hospitality, just send me an email. Really simply, mingo@torreypines.church. In another episode, I'm going to address how to deal with kids care. That's a whole nother subject. And so if that's a question you've got, be looking for that next episode, that next conversation, and I'll talk to you on the next video.